Hi, I'm Matt. I'm at the Sunview Luncheonette in Brooklyn, New York. For those of you who might not be familiar with the space, it was a fully functioning diner from around the 1950s until the early 2000s. After it closed, with some luck and some dedicated people, it was able to reopen as a kind of arts slash community collective space, which it still is today. And tonight we're going to do online something we normally would do here physically. It's a durational painting by Nitin Mukul called CRATER with a live score composed and performed by Lena Marika Pavic. We're going to talk with the two of them for a little bit before we get started. Nitin, maybe you want to talk about what brought this work in particular to mind now. And Lena, maybe you could go into how your approach to the score worked. And maybe both of you can just talk about your practices in general.
Sure. I started making what I now call durational paintings around 2008. The approach I came up with was layering paint and other matter in sheets of ice and freezing each layer in stages, so they accumulate into layers of ice. And then I placed that piece outside vertically oriented on the same way a canvas would be on an easel. And I let it meld according to the natural weather conditions outside, filming the process. And then for the most part, there's no post-production or slowing down or speeding up. So what you're seeing is kind of a record of that whole process. And then after a while, I started focusing on making those outside and paying attention to the way that they could measure the conditions of the location, like temperature, light quality, and weather, and letting all those factors have a role in the outcome of the piece. And and then specifically, CRATER was part of the Queen's Biennial at the Queen's Museum in 2013. And at that point, I wasn't really, set on making them outside all the time. And I actually shot this one in my basement in Jackson Heights. And I sometimes shoot them in like a shallow glass or plastic dish, but this one was the first one I made in glass. And I had an idea to have it be backlit and have the room in the basement be completely dark aside from the black lighting or the backlighting, so that as it melted, the light would kind of get brighter from the back. And this one, compared to a lot of the ones I'm making lately, just was really built up with a lot of dense material like charcoal and metallic powders. And I think you can see that it's very dense. And it refers to the title crater refers to the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, which I had gone to that year. And the idea of that crater as a formed void eventually became a haven for a huge range of biodiversity. Somehow had a special resonance given the current circumstances and the pandemic and just the worldwide protests that are happening now in response to systemic racism. And that was kind of part of the thinking behind choosing this piece. And Lena and I collaborated together. We both knew that this piece was going to be made for the Queen's Museum, and I had started making the video, and then I had reached out to her about composing a score for it, which in a lot of my collaborations doesn't always work that way. And in a lot of cases, I'm responding to an existing piece of sound as well. So this was kind of a special occasion where she composed something especially made for this. So I feel like she was, in a way, responding to what she saw.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, first of all, not knowing how it was made, just looking at the visuals, it was like such, it was so beautiful, you know? And it was, I mean, I think normally, like things, you know, the events that I do at Sunview or whatever, I really put a lot of value into, I don't, the moment of execution. Like it matters that people are there together and we're letting things happen, and just kind of the grain of the moment being really potent, you know. And let's say there's a lot of videos that are pre-edited or, you know, created with a different kind of intention. And so I don't know, knowing that you left it alone, you know, and then that it wasn't messed with, you know, in like terms of like putting effects on it on a, you know, on a, I don't know, video editing software and things like that. Knowing those things kind of, I don't know, made it all the much. It put me on a different track, you know, in terms of making the sound for it. That I wanted something. I mean, obviously, I'm dealing with a recorded material, so you know, I'm making a soundtrack. But at the same time, I wanted it to be something organic, like, and expansive in its form. Like, I mean, I could
Yeah,
make like, and it also had like a kind of a, it, just watching it, you know, all these little things happen and also dramatic things. Like it feels like landscapes shifting, but also kind of, you know, it conjures up a lot of like sensorial emotions, you know. So I definitely, in the 20 minutes, I saw a kind of a arc to what was happening. I mean, obviously everything's melting, so things are happening, but kind of more of a emotional arc too. So I wanted to make something that wasn't a soundtrack, but it had something that kind of had a arc to it that would bring out the drama that I was like seeing in all these colors moving around. And at the same time, not have it be so like specific. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For it to like invite people to imagine, but for there to be, let's say, you know, a story, kind of a musical story to it. So that's kind of what I thought. And then I had my own little adventure, you know, in Pro Tools. I and it was a challenge, you know. I decided that I wanted to be, you know, like synths and samples and then violin and viola. But yeah, it was like a, I decided on my palette and then I started, and it was, you know, it was a process. It was a challenge to stretch something out for like 18 minutes.
yeah,
Um, and then at the same time, me and Nitin live in the same neighborhood in Jackson Heights, and I was learning from Hindustani music from our mutual friend Dada. And I think that was also influencing. Dada also played at Sunview. We
hmm,
just, our last concert we did was at Sunview.
yeah, that was
And
incredible.
um, yeah, well, what I was learning from him, like in terms of, you know, building something not from like the dramatics of the melody, but to like really to sink in to a sound. And it's the same with what Nitin was doing, like just sinking in to the stories of the colors, or, you know, the shapes. You know, it was really like a, it was a cool process. I still really like this piece. I don't know how it connects to the current moment, but the current moment is always connected to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I value, you know, anything that helps me slow down, go to another place. And I think this is a piece that does that.
How
Yeah,
long had?
Huh?
I'm
I was gonna
glad
say,
you
how long
mentioned
had?
that. Sorry, that grounding in Indian aesthetics that you got from Dada, and
Yeah.
I got from my own just sort of background in looking at Indian art as well as Western art, and
Mm-hmm.
and then also, you know, just the way you're talking about your process. I feel like there's an analogy there with the layers um, that I kind of build up in making the piece, and then the way they just kind of peel back and disintegrate,
Mm-hmm.
and the way your layers just kind of like build up and just you know, become this long composition.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Matt, you were going to
How
say.
long had you known each other at that point?
I think at least 2 years.
Yeah.
We met through Gregory, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then we
But we
ended.
also lived together.
Yeah, my whole family was subletting a room in Lena's apartment while we were between places after we came back from. We lived in India from 2005 to 2008, and then we were in an apartment for a little while, and then we were moving to a new place, which we were trying to prep and get ready because it was kind of a mess, and that was also in the neighborhood. So Lena kind of
Yeah.
saved us by having a room that we could be in while we were in the middle of that process.
Yeah. So we're actually a functioning family for a couple months. um,
That's cool.
so what about like Sunview? Do you think, what is the future of Sunview? I'm just curious.
Uh, I mean, it depends on what the new normal is after this. Um, I mean, considering the usually events aren't too crowded in here, it wouldn't be too hard to social distance. But
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see. It just depends on what things look like if and when they do reopen.
Well, yeah, the essence of Sunview, like that type of thing is like, even before the pandemic, that's what I was missing the most or felt that was most precious. And now it's even more, it makes me sad. I feel like I'm thinking about like another era, you know,
Yeah,
even though it was like just a few months ago that we played there.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's had a couple of errors already, so we can use the third one.
yeah,
So should we get started?
sure.
Yeah, let's get started, and there'll be a live chat happening during the broadcast, during the screening. So anyone who wants to kind of communicate with us and comment or ask questions while they're watching, feel free to do so.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
we'll give instructions on how to donate to Sunview or Nitin or Lena and Equal Justice Initiative as well.
Yeah, that link we'll put in the comment in the chat section as well. So it'll be there.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Good one.